Welcome to the first ever podcast episode of Explore Utah. Today we are going to be talking about two different hikes down in southern Utah. The first one we're going to be talking about is Buckskin Gulch, which is near Kanab, Utah, near the Arizona border. And then the second one we're going to be talking about is Upper Calf Creek Falls, near Escalante, Utah. And there's actually two different hikes here, but we're just going to be talking about the Upper Calf Creek Falls. So let's dig in and start on talking about the Buckskin Gulch, okay? So the Buckskin Gulch, what it is, it's a 20 plus mile hike. It's kind of you start at one end and you end in, take kind of like a little loop. As you can see here, you start out hiking in the desert, and slowly you start going in more and more into a slot canyon. Now, Buckskin Gulch is the longest and deepest slot canyon in the southwest, and it's actually in the top 10 of the most dangerous hikes. And we'll explain the reason why it is in the top 10 dangerous hikes. But anyways, so the slot canyon, there's other bunch of slot canyons in southern Utah, but which are more narrow, prettier, or even more challenging to explore. The length and variety of the terrain in the Gulch and Buckskin Gulch make it the best overall. And personally, it's one of my favorite slot canyons. The canyon is narrow for about 12 miles, so that's when you're actually hiking in the slot canyon. The cliffs become steadily higher downstream, reaching a height of 500 feet above the stream bed at the end, where Buckskin Gulch meets the Prairie River, which also flows through a deep canyon for several miles either side of the confluence, which we'll talk about briefly here in a little bit. But what I love about Buckskin Gulch is the walls in Buckskin Gulch are rather dark, and the great depth that they are means that the sun rarely touches the narrow passages towards the bottom, making the walls of the gulch show more characteristic swirls and curves worn by countless floods throughout the years, and you can kind of see that with the pictures. The gulch has some open, shallower sections, but averages less than 10 feet wide for most of its length. There are always some residue pools of water and mud. The extent depends on how recently the canyon has flooded. Occasionally swimming will be necessary, but normally the pools are just about 2 to 3 feet deep and a few yards long. And so the water is permanently cold and muddy, so just be aware of that. What I love the most here, starting, as you can see in the picture here, is the confluence. And what that is, that's where it meets up with the Prairie River. And so this junction is a magical place with an overpowering sense of isolation and adventure. The water of the Prairie River is fast flowing and light brown colored. It's quite different to the clear, lazy flow down inside the gulch. There are some sandbanks, but generally the river covers all of the canyon floor. You will see a couple pictures coming up here of what I'm talking about. And after you hike through this slot canyon, you enter into this river right here, and that's when you reach the confluence, and then you're gonna hike out. And mostly what I do is I usually bring two different hiking boots. I bring a hiking boots for the hike in, and then I switch to water shoes because towards the end you're just walking through water, and so I just use my water shoes for that. And so that's Buckskin Gulch right there for you. It's one of my favorite hikes. And now we're going to be talking about Upper Calf Creek Falls. So Upper Calf Creek Falls, as I mentioned earlier, that there's two different hikes here. There's a lower and then there's an upper. And as you can see in the pictures here, it's just pure desert. The upper one is a little bit more challenging than the lower one. And that's why I love it the most, is because you don't get as many people showing up there. But what Upper Calf Creek Falls is just a beautiful, beautiful waterfall. The lower falls are roughly around 130 feet high, but the upper ones, it's more solitude. I'll be by yourself, go a little swimming in the pools. And then what I love too is on your way drive home, you can stop off this place called Devil's Garden, as you can see here in a second. And what that Devil's Garden is, it's more of a leisure type of walk. You just park and walk around. And it's just beautiful. It's just, another creation of Mother Nature. And that finishes up this episode of Exploring Utah.